is now my pleasure to introduce Laura Storey, who is the Director of Housing by day, but she also wears many other caps. Laura Storey has a Master's in Education from OISE, and she is very interested in the ethos, or the value of education. And so, Laura, could you join us now?
I would like us to take a look at liberal arts education here at Trent University, and perhaps take a moment to think about knowledge as its own end. And I would like to first talk about Cardinal John Henry Newman, who in the 19th century wrote about the idea of a university. And he was writing from his hats, his religious hats. He was a cardinal with the Catholic Church, changed from being an Anglican to a Catholic. And his views on education were very strongly sided with religion. However, his beliefs are still seen as a baseline for liberal arts education today. And one of the things that he said about liberal arts education is this, and I'm going to read you a quote. "It is a great point, then, to enlarge the range of studies which a university professes, even for the sake of the students, and though they cannot pursue every subject which is open to them, they will be the gainers by living among those and under those who represent the whole circle. This I conceive to be the advantage of a seat of universal learning considered as a place of education." So the way he was looking at that is that he believed an institution was a universal learning place where the sum was greater than the parts. He also went on to say, "A habit of mind is formed which lasts through life, of which the attributes are freedom, equitableness, calmness, moderation, and wisdom, or what in a former discourse he ventured to call a philosophical habit." He believed that institutions help individuals develop in many personal ways. Historically, liberal arts have been looked at from the perspective of know thyself. But I'm wondering how we recognize that in today's classrooms. I believe much of the focus is on the exterior. So basically looking at what we can memorize, what facts we know, dates, theories, ideas, looking at formulas, and observable behaviors, rather than basically on what's going on in getting people ready for the working world. But I believe we're spending very little time looking at people's values, beliefs, moral development, self-understanding, emotional maturity in the classroom. And I'm wondering if we're really using the original thought of liberal arts education, which is know thyself. Perhaps as a society, we've put very little value on things that we can't actually measure, or in concepts that we have a difficulty in equating with value in our society. And I believe this starts in the classroom of young students. So I look at students that are 5, 6, and 7 years old, and they have homework. This just boggles my mind. When I was 5, 6, and 7, I came home and played. And these same students are required to sit in a chair all day long and basically have information dumped into their head. And as students continue to move through the education system, there's very little that helps them focus on the interior lives and their subjective lives. So really what's going on in their heart versus the observable behaviors. So again, sitting in chairs year after year, facing a lecturer. And of course, I think I'm being a bit cynical here. I don't think this actually happens. There's of course group work and of course time for discussion, but that's just for the sake of my example tonight. And I also believe that as institutions of higher education have grown, there is far more of a focus on becoming larger, focusing on the budget, how do we get students in the door and how do we keep them here, on basically acquiring things and consuming. I think it has a lot less to do with what Newman described as an institution and has become larger and more impersonal with only a focus on the exterior. But imagine for a minute if we could create an institution that focused on fostering the interior lives of our students. I strongly believe that one way that we can do this is helping students practice reflection, both in a curricular way and a co-curricular way. So I think it would be helpful if I defined what reflection is to me. And so I looked in the dictionary, and of course there's lots of different terms for reflection, but I think the one that was most applicable from Merriam-Webster's dictionary is consideration of some subject matter, idea, or purpose. That was the best I could come up with. But what it means to me really is that it provides me with an opportunity to review input, to look at the past, and to look forward at the future. Sorry, almost said funeral. To look at theory and put it into practice, so praxis. And it allows me to take what I've learned and to basically chew on it. I think it can be done through journaling, through one-on-one conversations or group conversations, through contemplation, meditation, art, music, or just taking time. I really kind of equate this with defragmenting a computer. I don't even know if computers still do this now, but when I was a bit younger, you would defragment your computer to help basically put all the files together in a much better fashion, and so your computer was much more efficient, was working more efficiently and effectively. And so I kind of look at reflection as defragmenting my life and my brain's computer. And so we are in an educational institution, so I thought it would be best if I also told you about the research behind reflection. So what does the research tell us? Well, I think first, there's plenty of research that talks about meditation and mindfulness and how that reduces stress and also positively impacts self-esteem. And so I think that can be called common knowledge. As well, Kolb has a theory of experiential learning. The second facet of his learning, the first is concrete experience, and the second is reflective observation. It's basically looking at what you've just seen and basically putting it into practice. The Higher Education Research Group out of UCLA has developed a Spirituality in Higher Education Institute. And I'm going to qualify the word spirituality. I don't mean religion. What I mean is look at the interior and how people make meaning in their lives. And they've spent several years, about 9 years, studying students from across the US in secular and religious institutions, students of all different shapes and sizes. Alexander and Helen Aston have made it their work, in their past retirement age, they've made this their work to find out how spirituality and religiosity impacts students' lives in higher education. And what they've learned is that students who participate in these types of activities are often far more successful throughout their time at university. And in particular, when students show growth in equanimity, and what I mean by equanimity is the ability to keep calm and to practice self-reflection, those students have increased GPAs. It's the only aspect of spirituality that directly impacts GPA. And this factor has also been seen to improve intellectual self-esteem. They haven't figured out if intellectual self-esteem increases GPA or vice versa, but they both still increase based on the growth of equanimity at university. In some fields, like education, reflection is put into practice quite often. If anyone is in Bachelor of Education here or in concurrent education, I'm sure you've talked about reflection at some point and reflecting on how you're teaching and what you're doing and how you're bringing that forward. And in addition, in my own field of student services, one of our practices is reflection. It's right in our code, our standard of ethics and how we practice. We need to look at what we've done and how we can do it better in the future. So now that we've looked at what reflection is and the research behind it, I think it's really important for us to look at how we can cultivate this with our students. How can we, as student leaders, as professionals, as faculty members and staff, positively impact these factors with students? How can we operationalize reflection? I think that's a difficult question, but I can give you some examples of things that have worked in the past. Paulo Freire, a Brazilian educator, focused on literacy and social justice, and he, in particular, worked with those who were oppressed and created some critical pedagogy. And in particular, he believed that those who authentically commit themselves to the people must re-examine themselves constantly. So basically, in order to be able to serve others effectively, you need to be able to reflect on what you're doing. And in addition, he did not believe in the concept of banking. So sitting in a lecture hall or sitting in a chair and staring at the chalkboard and having information just being dumped into your head, but sharing opportunities for reflection and group work and working together, and that there was no hierarchy in education. We're all learning from each other. Service learning is another one of the top activities which helps students engage in activities related to reflection. Those who participate in service learning, and what I mean by that is getting involved in the community and with another group of students, those students often persist through to graduation, and that's because they're connected to others and their community and have opportunities for reflection. Freshman 101 courses are very popular in the US right now, and often they'll take a topic, let's say chocolate, and then they will tie chemistry and how the chocolate is made and history of chocolate, and then the students will reflect on where those subjects intersect. So they tie in a component of reflection right into the classroom without calling it reflection. I also think as faculty and staff, we can provide students with opportunity to connect their learning with reflection. So allowing for intuitive knowing versus logical reasoning. Opportunities for inspiration and creativity, because I strongly believe that creativity and reflection are tied together. I also think that we need to help students learn how to make decisions, reflect on decisions past, and reflect on how they want to make decisions in the future. And as I was thinking about all of these things tonight, the poem by Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken, came to mind. And the last stanza in particular: I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Is it the path that helped him make the difference? Or is it his perspective, and dare I say it, his reflection on the road he traveled that made the difference? I will leave you with this. If know thyself is the goal in our liberal arts education, how can we foster the look at the interior? And how can we take this from traveling down a road to looking at how we traveled? Imagine a life for our students where our reflections on our life and our decisions and our path coincide, where our interior and exterior are together.